Welcome, game devs. We got three things to cover in this video. First, we have some very exciting announcements, and anybody who's interested in making their own game is really going to want to hear this. Second, we have our custom material pack we're releasing for anybody using the CryEngine 3. And then third, we're going to go over the materials and make sure everyone's caught up to speed with our tutorials so that you can keep up with where we're going next, and I'll explain that right now. Alright, so the first very exciting announcement is that JustMakeGames.com has decided to make an entire game using CryEngine 3 from start to finish with a tutorial every step of the way. So if you've ever wanted to make your own game but you thought you didn't have the resources, or you're not part of a team, or you just don't know how, then you're in luck. And the game might not have all the bells and whistles, but it will at least be a fully functioning game demo so that everybody knows the entire process from start to finish. And the tutorials won't just be useful for beginners, because we're also going to be covering some advanced topics like third-person camera, simple inventory and questing system, and using a melee weapon. So game development teams creating their own commercial or indie games will also find this useful, because if you weren't already aware, you can use the free CryEngine 3 to create your own standalone commercial game. Alright, so let me tell you very quickly about the game. The initial concept was going to be very simple, but still cover things like third-person camera, having an inventory with a user interface, using melee weapon, and have a simple quest. And the premise for the game was going to be just a very simple cartoony third-person RPG, where, for example, you might have a quest from your mother to go find an apple and deliver it to your grandpa who lives in the mountains, and you're going to beat some skeletons up along the way with a stick. So that was the initial concept. However, since I've been discussing this project with members on JustMakeGames.com, it seems many members are interested in being part of the project. So we've actually decided to make this a community-wide game, so everybody who wants to be a part of it can be. And that means the concept for the game is still under discussion in the forums. So let's say, for example, you think the game should be multiplayer and include guns. Let's say you want to learn those things for your own games, then those will be the topics we discuss in the tutorials. And one idea for the game so far has been Viet Cry, a Vietnam game, and the community basically can just slowly provide assets. If you're practicing modeling and you make a nice dock or a tree, you can pop it in the project files, and then in the tutorials, myself and the other authors will be teaching you how to put these puzzle pieces together in the programming, and you'll be surprised. You'll be able to do all of this. In CryEngine 3, the C++ and the Lua scripting is very well organized, so anything you guys want to see, just discuss it on the forums, and that's what our game is going to be about. And you might say, what if the game's really good? You guys can just sell it for commercial, and who owns the game? Then we just made a game for you. That's not how this is working. This will be a game being made by and for developers, and there are a lot of us out here who do this just for fun because it is fun. So let's say somehow the game did become involved or popular enough to become a commercial game, then I am leaving the option open for the community to decide if the game should be sold for a low cost, with all the proceeds going to a foundation or charity of some sort. And I'm not sure what kind of organization indie game developers would like to support, but I'm interested to hear, and also to hear your suggestions on the direction of this game and what you'd like to see in it. But regardless of anything I just said, JustMakeGames.com is going to pump out a simple game from start to finish for everyone to follow along. So please, if you support our cause, just take 1 second to sign up on our website or subscribe to YouTube. It really helps us provide these free services when the community is growing. And I know you're going to enjoy the website. We're trying to give away free games. 25 comments is all it takes, so we can get rid of Dirt 3 and move on to Crisis 2 and then Battlefield 3 and graphics cards after that. And I know you're going to enjoy the website. There's a lot of features and a lot more features still being added. The chat's probably the favorite one. You can receive instant help pretty much anytime you come to the website. Okay, now on to our next topic, which is the custom material pack we're giving away free at JustMakeGames.com. Anybody can come download these, and these aren't just textures. They're ready-to-go materials for you to just drop into your CryEngine 3 folder. And there's actually 5 materials being shown in this one image, and it's kind of hard to tell because they're blending. It's got the muddy grass, mud, dirt, and rocks. And we're providing this because we did offer texturing tutorials, which are very helpful, and if you don't know how to texture, go watch those. But right now I'm going to do a quick tutorial on what's been updated and what techniques we're using and continuing to learn about, so that you guys can blend these textures even nicer and have much better looking textures in the engine. So I really recommend, if you're going to follow our Make a Game tutorials, that you just watch the next minute or so, and that you don't just install these textures and materials and think that you're done with texturing, because even these aren't the highest quality kind of materials you'd want to use in a commercial game, and unless you really fine-tune them, and there's a lot of techniques we're still learning to continue to make better materials, but these will work fine, and I think you guys will learn a lot from them and enjoy using them. Let's go into Photoshop so I can quickly show you just how one was made. Okay, so you should already know that your textures, great place to get them, are cgtextures.com, and you want to use a 512 by 512 for your main diffuse. And then you can either use a filter, other, high pass in order to high pass the texture yourself, and you can get specific with it, but the diffuse needs to be kind of grayish, because it's not where the material gets its color from. Or you can just use the CryTiff exporter to export it and select Terrain Diffuse, and it'll gray it for you. Terrain Diffuse high pass as if you've done it yourself. So once you've done that, you want to focus on your background layer, which is a 64 by 64 image, and it's what is seen from very far away, so basically just a brown blob if it's going to be a mud or something like that. And the way we make these is to start a new file and make it 128 by 128 and just filter render some clouds and use the appropriate shades that you want. So if this was sand, use like a light yellow and a medium yellow, and then run the clouds. And then you want to do filter other offset by 64, because this is a 128 image, so we filter offset it by 64. And if we do that twice, you can do, here's the shortcut to your last filter, do it twice and your texture is seamless. And you can see here I've already done this, but your texture is definitely seamless. And then you just save this as a bitmap. They always use bitmaps for the 64 by 64s, and just put that all in the same place. You should know where to put those in your CryEngine 3 textures / custom. And so now I'll show you everything that we are including for you guys in the pack. You have your dirt, grass, there's 2 in mud, and then you have your rock. So for example, we have our diffuse, we have our small 64 bitmap. The DDS is auto-generated, but it won't, because you'll just drop it all in there. You go to your CryEngine, your game, your textures, and then I've made a custom folder, which if you haven't, you can just go up to the top and grab this whole custom folder and just drop it into a folder, CryEngine game textures. Okay, now once you're in your map, you already know, if you don't watch the earlier tutorials, to set your layers, set the bitmap 64s, and then assign the materials in the custom textures folder to the layers, and then you paint your layers. And I'm going to show you in the game what you're getting. Here's your first cracked, muddy texture, and then that blends into these just basic rock dirt texture. We have the kind of the transitioning between mud and grass into your full grass texture, and then that just actually, here's the rock, the final texture, and then it transitions back out using the cracked mud. And here's an example of the rock kind of on a little cliff area. Here's some more examples of blending between the dirt and the middle grass to the actual grass. And I just quickly want to teach you guys some of the tips and techniques that we use to blend these textures. And if you're wondering, we'll be having tree assets next for you guys. We're going to have cartoony trees and realistic trees, and we're going to include a tutorial for you guys on that. Now let's practice some blending here really quick. Go into your layer painter, and some things you guys are going to want to really toy with is the hardness. Sometimes I do it on 0.01, believe it or not. The radius, obviously, and in your material editor, you're going to, for the most part, your diffuse color should be 255 all whites, but sometimes it just looks better with the blending when you lower it. And you just gotta play with all those settings. But like I said, sometimes I'll put a 1 a 0.01 on the hardness here, and it makes a big difference. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Crash. Tutorial's over.